Controversy around the Joker movie continues to rise. Tensions are growing, and people are creating a backlash against this movie. And part of it is the critics, part of it is the leftist crowd, but at the same time, there's a lot of other people that aren't very happy with the direction that this movie is going or anything like that as well. I covered this in my last video on the channel here, where I talked about the statement that was issued from the Aurora theater, the one that the mass shooting took place in during the Dark Knight Rises, to Warner Brothers, and then we covered the statement that Warner Brothers made in response. So if you want to go check out that video, you can. But in this video, we're going to be talking about what Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix have to say about this entire thing. There's a lot of controversy around this movie right now. There's a lot of tension, and it's not fair. It's not fair to Joaquin Phoenix. It's not fair to Todd Phillips. I just covered a video on my channel recently as well, talking about how Joaquin Phoenix walked out of an interview because he was asked some crazy question like, do you have any concern that you might cause violence by the portrayal of your character? Something along those lines. So we're going to go ahead and look at what they have to say here. So, Phillips' R-rated Joker took home the top prize of the Venice Film Festival, but reviews have remarked on the film's gritty violence. Joker wants to be a movie about the emptiness of our culture. Instead, it's a prime and dangerous example of it. It's just sensitive people. It's sensitive people who can't make the distinction between entertainment and politics. We're going to continue to see this become more of a thing where the two blend, where politics and entertainment become a blend. And I actually talked about this a little bit on Twitter today, because there's actually government statements that are being made about warning that there might be an upsurge in violence because of this movie. I don't want the government to get involved with my entertainment. Okay, I don't. That is like one of the last things that I need, is to have government become an influence in my entertainment. I don't want that. I mean, government already has way more power than they need. I don't need them to be, making the decisions for my entertainment as well. So, that is definitely a concern of mine, and we're continuing to see from the leftist crowds, from the SJWs, from Hollywood, that they want to have political influence, that they want to not only have political influence, but they want politics to influence what they do as well. Someone has seen the film confirms to Yahoo Entertainment the violence is more realistic and not over the top blood and gore. While there are a couple of scenes of overt gun violence, the bulk of the movie isn't necessarily violent, but very grim, and in terms of the content and character backstory. Let's see. So, Phoenix, who walked out of an interview recently when asked if the movie might inspire acts of violence, has responded to critics calling the film dangerous. Well, I think that for most of us, you're able to tell the difference between right and wrong, the actor told IGN. So I don't think it's the responsibility of a filmmaker to teach the audience morality or the difference between right or wrong. I mean, to me, I think that that's obvious. And I agree. I really, really do agree with what Phoenix is saying here, especially when it comes to something like violence, when it comes to something like murder, things like that. You shouldn't have to tell your audience that stuff is bad. That's just that's like the most obvious moral lesson that you could have, that you don't need to say, right? You don't need to tell people, hey, murder's bad. That's just so obvious. Why do we need to get to this point where you need to flat out say, whenever you're making a message in your movie, if it's a good message, bad message, what kind of a message you're trying to get across, all of that type of stuff. You don't need to say that, especially when it comes to something like this. Now, yeah, I'm a fan of exploring moral questions, and I want to see films get back into doing that, because that is something that's become lost in a lot of movies that are being made today, where we don't explore moral questions, we don't explore moral complexity. Instead, it's all becoming about politics, about political questions and political complexity. And I don't want that, man. I want to get back to the point where it's more about morality, because that is what storytelling is all about. Storytelling is about more morality, So, we need to get back to that point, but at the same time, we don't need to make those types of statements when it comes to things like, violence. Phillips added, who is the director of the movie makes statements about a lack of love, childhood trauma, lack of compassion in the world. I think people can handle that message. Exactly. That is a beautiful message. That is a beautiful message to have in your movie, because that is a message that so many people can relate to, especially in our culture, in our current culture. It's so, to me, bizarre when people say, oh, well, I could handle it, but imagine if you can't. It's making judgments for other people, and I don't even want to bring up the movies in the past that they've said this about, because it's shocking and embarrassing when you do. When you go, like, OMG, Do the Right Thing, they said about that movie too. And exactly, like, the fact that this movie is about a lack of love, childhood trauma, lack of compassion in the world is such a fantastic message. Honestly, it's awesome to hear that that's actually kind of what the theme, the more moral theme of the movie is, I guess. That's actually really interesting. That makes me honestly even more excited to have those types of complex issues to be delving into in this movie. And it's just, people are just so sensitive, man. People just need to wake up and stop being just complete wuss bags, complete sissy pants, and just embrace complexity, embrace the finer things, the nuances, you know. I don't think there's anything else from Todd Phillips in this article here. There was one statement that Todd Phillips made that I thought was really good as well. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. I think it might be in this article here. Yeah. So this is something else that Todd Phillips said as well. I think that Aurora is obviously a horrible, horrible situation, but even that is not something you blame on the movie. Exactly. You know, we don't need to say that it's a horrible situation. Everyone knows that it's a horrible situation. Quite frankly, if you do your own research about Aurora, that gentleman wasn't even going in as the Joker. That was misreported. His hair was dyed red, and he was having, obviously, a mental breakdown. There's something horrifying about that, but it wasn't related to it outside of the fact that it happened as a movie theater. This is not the thing that the movie is trying to represent. The movie still takes place in a fictional world. It can have real-world implications, opinions, but it's a fictional world and a fictional character and a fictional world that has been around for 80 years. The one that bugs me more is the toxic white male thing. When you go, oh, I just saw John Wick 3. He's a white male who kills 300 people and everybody's laughing and hooting and hollering. Why does this movie get held to different standards? It honestly doesn't make sense to me. The one that bugs me more is the toxic white male thing. I mean, I think that's kind of a silly thing to be saying about John Wick. You know, that's kind of a silly thing to be saying. But I agree with the rest of what he's saying here. You know, we need to get back to having a separation between stories and movies and things like that and real world events. Yes, of course, movies can be a mirror of real world things. Movies can even touch on things like that, can touch on real world issues, but do it in a way that actually adds complexity to the story, that adds something to the story. Don't just do it just for the political statements, for pushing identity politics and things like that, to go woke. You know, we don't need that in our movies. We don't want that in our movies. But, you know, that's the direction that Hollywood is continuing to go in. So I have a lot of respect for Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix standing their ground against the backlash that they are currently facing. So well done to them on that. You know, you have bigger balls than most people in Hollywood do at this time for doing that. So I am still excited for Joker. I can't wait to see this movie. It looks fantastic. And honestly, just hearing more about the movie because of all this controversy just makes me that much more excited to see this movie. So with that being said, let me know in the comments below what you think about this. What do you think about what Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix have to say? And I will talk to you all very soon in another video. Talk to you later. Bye.
With my heart's desire.